What's going on, YouTube? I'm Galen Courage from Crescent Studios. And, just one of those days, just want to record something, nothing's really coming into your head, can't think of a good Let's Play to do or a good funny video to pass the time with. But, it's not always about the video games sometimes. Heck, a lot of YouTubers do play a lot of video games, but they'll also have like a little side bonus sometimes as well, or like a side program to go with their games and wacky little short videos. Usually podcasts, but I want to keep something a little bit simpler than a podcast. Because whenever I go through the day thinking about what all is going on, because think about it, throughout the day, tons of things go in and out, and you're just so focused on that. But then at night, if you're one of the late night out, and I cannot talk now, I can't talk because it's so dang late. If I look at my clock, I'm pretty sure it's going to say it's almost 2 o'clock in the morning. But that's the point right there. Are you one of those night owls who's usually up super late at night? And then there's just nothing. There's no kind of plan at all. It's night. What are you going to do? Watch a few movies? Play a video game? Spend all night talking to one of your friends on the phone? Maybe your girlfriend, perhaps, because you can't decide who should hang up first. Well, how about something else? Like those late night thoughts. The thoughts that always come in your head late at night that you would not have normally during the day. If you ever had that happen, well, this is what this video is about. Maybe even something new. I like to call this the late night talk, where you just kind of let your mind roam free of just everyday problems, stresses, activities, all just completely off the table. You're just there to focus on one thing and one thing alone. And that's your thoughts at night, where there's not a care in the world. You guys probably know what I mean by that one. But literally, it's one of those things. I've always kind of thought about that. How many people have similar thoughts like this? But this is what the series is about. Late night talk. It's pretty much just, we talk about things that go through our heads at night. And one of these things is mainly just me for the time being, just talking about ideas that I have. And maybe if this gets good, maybe I'll have like a phone here in the middle of my table here to take phone calls for late night activities. For thoughts that somebody might have. Or leave me messages saying like, hey, this is a thought that I have and I can bring it up in the next episode. But I'm not going to make this just a simple trailer. Let's let this be number one right here. The first late night talk we've ever had. And my mind is all over the place. Anything's going to come out of this sucker by now. But one of those things that always kind of goes through my head whenever it's late at night is this. As you can see, this is just a standard Nerf gun, or Nerf rifle, whatever you feel like talking about, mainly. And I don't even have the clip on here, actually. I just didn't feel like trying to find that right now. But I've always thought about the success of Nerf guns. They're just so popular. I mean, yes, there's things like airsoft guns and paintball guns, all fantastic things to do. But one of the main differences in between them all is that with airsoft and paintball gun, you have to spend tons of money on that ammunition. It's like one shot, that's it. You're never going to find that thing again. But with Nerf guns, it's just a foam dart, gets some pretty good distance. It could be better, but again, this thing's made of plastic. You're not going to get much out of that. But it's one of those things I've always kind of thought about growing up, is how widely popular these things are. And it doesn't matter how old you get, but Nerf guns are just always the same. They don't need to, yes, they do change, the molds and, the different guns you use, because, yeah, there's some pretty crazy stuff out there you could find. If you look online, you could probably find some of the old school ones back in the 90s. Those guns were psychotic. It's like every little kid's dream to have, hey, I got this Nerf gun with a scope on it. Doesn't work that well, but it does look cool, though. And also, the Nerf guns back then, they were different. You had to, pump them up. Like they were air-powered. Or it's like a little pull on the trigger, and you had to hope that thing will stay, or they were strong enough. Because sometimes they glue those suckers in there pretty good. But nowadays, it's more like you want to hope when you have that cartridge in there, that the Nerf gun doesn't get clogged in the barrel. Because with this thing, you can see here, is that you can pop this part open because a dart gets stuck in this little inner chamber here. And sometimes when you cock the gun, the dart gets stuck in there and it misfires. So you have to pull the thing 3 more times, and then you have 2 chewed out darts pretty much, and then 1 fine one that has a bit of a bend in it though. So that's one of those things that's kind of changed over the years, but they're still trying to improve on it. It's hard to get these things to work sometimes. And with the darts, how they work, they're made of foam. It's not like a sturdier object or anything that'll keep it sturdy when it's in the chamber. So it's expected that there's going to be some malfunctions. That's why usually a lot of people spend a lot of money on darts. But that's child's play, having to pay for more darts that you probably just need to replace, like, maybe, I don't know, every month or so. Like, if you play Nerf guns a lot with your friends and stuff, maybe you're going to lose a few bullets in the field or something, but they're easy to find, though. And if you're playing against friends, be like, I found a spare dart. I could use this in my gun now. It was simple back then. So, it's definitely one of those things I think is kind of interesting, though, how such a simple device has survived this long in an era of this, like, airsoft and paintball guns. The problem is, though, that with those two, is that with that ammo, is that you only get for the one game, and that's it. You're never going to find it again. Paintballs explode on you, so that's out, and airsoft, those things are tiny. If you could find all those shots after a game, you have vision like a freaking owl. So, that's definitely one of those things that I find very interesting to think about, to be honest. And it's one of these thoughts that comes to my head at night when you just have nothing else to worry about. It's just a stray thought that rolls in. That's kind of what this table is here. I just kind of grabbed a few things that I saw that I thought were interesting to talk about. So, that's Nerf guns for you. And, along with a grand tale, because, that tale's not worth it. If you guys really want to know, I can explain that in the next episode if I remember to. But let's move on to another topic. Minecraft. How such a simple game is so popular and loved by millions upon millions of people. Even a billion, I don't know. But it's so popular. Seriously, it's a game of just pixels and blocks. How is that such a popular thing, and why is it so much fun? People ask me this question every day, like whenever I go like, I like playing Minecraft. They're like, what's so special about this game? It's the most basic thing in the world. It looks like crap. And what do you do exactly? Well, this is the usual response I'll give them, and I really don't think about my response until later now. Like later at this point. Is that for such a simple game of just being made of blocks, being so basic that, seriously, a 4-year-old could figure it out. But the idea of it is just so ingenious at the same moment. Because nowadays, in modern technology, you think about how much graphics and story are huge elements to games now. And that's what everybody who's like around, like usually around like older crowds, like the young generation, love action-packed stuff, adventure things. They don't really take time to think about the basic things, so, like what we used to grow up with. Like side-scrollers, like Mario, how pixel, it was just pixels, jumping on pixels pretty much. That's all it was back then. Or Pokemon. You're a pixel character walking around in a pixelated world. Nowadays, it's all this modern technology and animations that make games look so clean and good that we almost forget about the basics and how dearing they were to us and how much importance they have. Because without those basic building blocks, we wouldn't have what we have today. But even now, it's fun to take that walk through the past, to experience what it's like to have one of these again, where it's a pixel world. And story? Now, a lot of games had story back in the day. Like, maybe some did, but like, example, Tetris. There's no story to that game at all. You're just putting blocks and trying to make something. I think someone said it was trying to build like a wall of Russia or something weird. I can't remember anymore. Building a spaceship. There's a lot of different theories about that. But again, it's one of those games that doesn't really have a clear story. It's just pixels making them getting 4 in a row and the line disappears. It's called Tetris. Simple. So that's kind of what the beauty of Minecraft is that there's no real objective. There's no story to really abide by. There's no jaw-dropping graphic cinematic scene that's just going to make you go like, dude, did you see the cinematic in this video game or in this movie that night? Like, I was going crazy when I saw it. Like, it's on YouTube and everyone loves it. Not Minecraft. No cinematics. No fancy-dancy schmancy, like, graphics. Just simple. Pixels. Block people. Blocks, literally. And the point of the game? Your imagination. Simple as that. It's the game of letting your imagination roam freely. And not a lot of people understand that. There's like, so I take this block, put it on top of this block, and it's a house? Yeah, pretty much. But it's what your brain can make of it. It's really a challenge of your imagination and creativity all in one. Because you have to be able to think of what you want to build first, then put the blocks down, And there you go. You've got yourself one fancy mansion over there, buddy, because you thought of it and you took the time to gather those resources to build something that you had in your head and put it into a world that's your very own. Or it's the world of you and your best friend, or the world of you and your siblings. It's just simple like that. And it's just really cool to see how such a simple game like Minecraft is still loved by so many people. Because it's so simple and basic. You don't need, it just goes to show you don't need to have games nowadays with amazing jaw-dropping graphics or amazing cutscenes, awesome dialogue, or a riveting tale story. It's just make it your own. Easy as that. And that's what I love about the game the most. I mean, yes, it's fun to be able to play with your friends too, because then you can cause all sorts of mayhem together, but deep down at the core, it's just a peaceful game of just letting your imagination run wild and seeing what comes out of it. I've seen some crazy stuff, and people usually build for a reason, but sometimes when it's just you, one-on-one, you and the block, it's amazing what you can create in that world. I've made a few things myself, and I do love it so much. So far today, we've already gone over Nerf guns and Minecraft. Welcome to my next discussion. Xbox. That's just a point of regard that I can never stand down, or just video games in general, because it's a good bounce off the whole graphic thing, or how networks work. I don't know exactly. I'm just kind of flying off the seat of my pants here. But with like companies nowadays, with how big of a deal graphics are, and how much money it costs to produce games nowadays, because it takes so much time to build, because that's the thing, back in the day, pixels. Simple as could be. Nowadays, you take those pixels, you rotate them around, you throw them in there, you put a ton of code, hours upon hours upon hours of work, and what have you got yourself? You got yourself a guy waving his hand at you saying, "Hi there, my name is Average Joe, and I'm going to be taking you through this riveting world of whatever game I'm in." Hours upon hours of work. And you have to understand, because gaming companies, they charge a lot of money to buy video games nowadays. I remember when I was younger, going into the store to buy games like my Game Boy, it felt kind of cheap back then. But then again, money was harder to have back then. I'm thinking, a game that costs $30 for any kid that around that time, it's like jaw-dropping. It's like $1 billion in one. How can I ever afford this thing? Daddy, can you buy this game for me? It's one of those things. But nowadays, when you're older, you realize those prices aren't as big of a deal, but you have a job though, so you're kind of balancing basic necessity needs over something you want to play. But then there's the one kicker, and this is the main thing I want to touch on. Networking. On how the games communicate with each other over the internet. So an example with an Xbox, or the PlayStation, or the Nintendo, is that when you want to play a game online, there you go, you've got yourself your internet connection running at full power, the best it can do, and you're playing video games online with your best buddy, having a great time. Well, then you have the newer generation stuff come out. And that's where we have the Xbox One for the example with this. That's why I have a 360 one and have an Xbox One controller. Is because the games don't connect with each other. Even though it's made by the same company and probably runs pretty close servers, it can't connect with each other. They don't communicate to play together. The example I could use right now of a game that's not out yet, but I'm really excited to see, is Destiny. That game is phenomenal. And me and my friends found out that when you have a character profile in the Xbox 360 version, that same character will be over on the Xbox One version. All the same stats, all the same skills, all the same items, everything is there. But they don't communicate with each other. So you can't have someone on the 360 playing with someone that's on the Xbox One. The networks are different. And one of those things I always hear people complain about is that I don't like how the networks don't connect. Why is it so hard for the networks to connect? Well, usually it's technology. That's one thing to consider. But the other thing that a lot of people don't think about is the money. And that's why I brought up how much time it costs for people to really make video games. That's why I brought that up earlier. But the thing is, though, the money is the big thing. Because nowadays, with how much money companies have to pay for man-hour or woman-hours, depending on who you are, I'm not trying to be offensive or anything in any regard, but It's one of those things you have to remember, is that it takes a lot of time nowadays to make a good video game with all those high-end graphics or like those amazing cutscenes or like awesome dialogue or riveting story. It costs a lot of money to do that. And they can make so many copies, but at the end of the day, they're having to sell tons of copies of that game in hopes to even make a profit for having to pay for all the hours of these people making the game. So when people are complaining about how, oh, I have to go buy the newest generation of console just to play my new game of a series that I love so much, they always get mad about it. It's like, why can't they make it in the older version, or why can't they, if they do make it in the older version, why can't I communicate with my friend who's on the other one because one of us didn't get the update for a new console? It's because the company needs to be able to have some form of collateral to be able to get that money back for how much time they spend making the games and having people to go buy newer consoles to be able to make a profit of any. If I'm not mistaken, Nintendo's like one of the only few companies that isn't in a giant pothole of debt because they keep the same genre that goes across all the age groups. And I've had this conversation with a lot of people, is that Nintendo has been around since we were kids. And it's there for kids that we're having nowadays, too. And it's such a basic thing. It's like, you have recognizable characters that you could show to anybody on the street and be like, hey, I recognize that character. That's Mario. Anybody could recognize Mario. He's the most basic character there is. He's like, you can recognize him from miles away, and you would know that's Mario. It's because he's so, he's easy to identify because we know him so well, because we grew up with him. And kids nowadays recognize him too, because he's still around. And same with a lot of modern day characters on Nintendo. Like most of the games that Nintendo makes usually are some of the main characters that we usually recognize, which is like Mario, Donkey Kong, Bowser, Pikachu. Characters like that are recognizable because we all know them as we grew up, and kids nowadays do too. Because it's a platformer. Well, it's like that platform of games is for all ages. Even as we're getting older and stuff, and you could probably be in your 40s, you'd still enjoy to sit down and play like an old school N64 or a Wii U, because it's having your same characters that you recognize as a kid. And for your grandkids or like your kids, they like to see what we used to play with when we were their age, and that was them. But for companies like with PlayStation and Xbox, those were later on in our life. And more of those games are more along the lines of M-rated, because they're mainly built for an older audience. Well, there's always the console war as well to consider, because both consoles have their games that are just for that kind, or it just runs easier on something else. And there's always the giant console war. So it causes more of a money hole for those two companies, because no one really can decide which one they prefer, or they make a deal with their buddies, like, I buy this console, you get this console. That's actually what I kind of did. I bought an Xbox One because I don't know any of my other friends who really own one right now, but my old boss, he has a PlayStation 4, and I know two people who own Wii U's. Just like we got everything on our plate here for consoles for our college years, which we're all psyched for. But, again, it's because we're having to get creative. But with the Wii, though, that's not in its own battle. They're making games to make people happy. It gives us a chance to walk through our childhoods again. And it's just one of those things. They're not in a console war. That's what Xbox and PlayStation are. They're console battles. They're trying to see who makes the better graphics, who makes the better video games, who has the better internet connection. I don't know. But they always fight. They fight with each other, trying to get the crowd to go to their side. Nintendo's off in its own world. And they aren't in debt because of it. They're walking on sunshine over there. Because they can repurpose characters that we all recognize to modern day standards, and we can enjoy them no matter how old we get. And they're there just to have fun. It's like, it's there for us to enjoy. It's not like an always like jam-packed adventure game kind of deal, or like blood and gore everywhere. It's like simple childhood memories. It's like physics. You see a Goomba, jump on its head. Simple. No blood. You just kind of goes fly on the ground. Goes up into a little cloud, he's gone. Simple as that. Or collect these coins. Collect the banana. Or have my pocket monster beat your pocket monster. There's no blood or anything, it's just like little physics. It's like, hey, I fall over and I'm gone. It's just kind of simple as that. And we can always enjoy like a refreshing breath take away from all the violence and gore sometimes. You have to be honest with that. I know a lot of people are like huge adrenaline junkies, love violent movies, love violent video games. I love violence itself. I would marry violence if it was a woman. A lot of people can be like that. But they can never deny the fact that they always love a good walk in the past of just simple mechanics and without the blood and gore or violence. It's just like, I'm just doing my own thing here. I'm having a good time. Simple as that. I'm enjoying the simple things in life. It's just like that. And on this table we've gone through 3 different things, or more, I don't know, I'm not even keeping track anymore, I'm just kind of enjoying the conversation. And as I said, night talk. Mind goes everywhere. Simple as that. You just let your mind wander, thinking of questions, things you don't really think about during the day. But when you lay down at night and think about these things before you go to sleep, they get you good. Or if you're a night owl, yeah, you know if you are a night owl or not. You're usually up to like 3 in the morning doing something. These same thoughts go through your head. And that's usually why you're not sleeping, because you're thinking. And I was going to go over a couple more things, but I'll probably save that for next time. And really, this painting here, which is painted by one of my a really good friend of mine. She's an amazing artist. And so shout out to her, and you know who you are. But you make some of the greatest art that I've ever seen. I almost want to fill these walls with artwork that you make and stuff, because it's really good. I've actually got a lot of friends that are really good at art. I'm actually trying to convince somebody right now to paint me a thing of King of the Hill, all the guys in the alleyway drinking their beers going, yep. Yeah, it's just things like that. But yeah, this is just kind of here for artwork. These are kind of basic topics I want to go over each day. That'll make it easier so you kind of be like, oh, what's he going to talk about? What is this item here for? What are we going to talk about? The hat. I really don't know where I was going with that one. Just kind of put it out there. Represent! Enjoy your product placement, Rooster Teeth. That's for you guys. Because you guys inspired me to want even to start doing video stuff to begin with. And that's why I enjoyed RTX 2014. It was that good. Literally. Anywho, I think it's time to wrap it up. I'm Daniel Kirsch from Crescent Studios, and this was Night Talk. Sleep well, everyone in the world, and keep those thoughts going. Because you never know what's going to happen when you just spend a little time at night thinking of possibilities.